So, my brothers and sisters, I titled my again short reflection with the woman who wiped Jesus' feet with her hair. As a child growing up, were you ever at a special family dinner where an important guest was invited and other high-level type of guests were to be in attendance? Have you ever had such an experience in the past? Do you recall the level of preparation that went into that dinner? Do you recall the type of cleaning that was done prior to the visit, the careful choice of the food, and the thoughtful setting up of the space that where this important guest was going to be? And do you remember the kind of talk at the dinner and the decorum and the behavior that was expected of every family member? Now, imagine in the middle of such an important dinner, an uncle with a drinking problem, and we all have one of those somewhere. One who does not keep himself so neat, burst into a room and then at the top of his voice greeted everyone and straight out went to the chief guest and just gave him a big hug. So imagine the embarrassment or the restlessness that sort of like engulfed the room at that point with such a high-level guest in the room. So that is how the evening felt about the dinner that we've just heard about in the gospel today. Simon the Pharisee put on a very special dinner in his home for a special guest. And the chief guest was a young and increasingly popular rabbi in town. Here you can think about hosting an archbishop in your home and the kind of preparation that has to go on in the home. So Simon the Pharisee was very thoughtful about who he wanted to attend the dinner, how he wanted the dinner to look like, and everything seemed to be going very well, when suddenly a notorious woman in town with questionable character burst into the room. And right away, she went to the guest of honor and held on to him and wouldn't let go of him. So, and then at some point, she burst into tears and held on to the guest of honor so tightly. And everyone in the room was embarrassed about what was happening, except the guest of honor himself. And he turned to everyone and he said that the woman's behavior and the tenderness was the best thing that he had seen in a long time. And he said that the woman had been forgiven by God of so much sin in her life, and her behavior that evening was the most appropriate response to the extravagant grace of God and mercy that he had received. So the guest of honor went on to encourage all at the table to imitate the response and the behavior of this woman that came in, and everyone was just unhappy about. Well, today, I'm not really here to talk about the judgmental attitudes of the Pharisees that day. I'm here really to speak about this woman. The gospel gives us some important things that we can be able to reflect on for the day in relation to our own lives as Christians. The very first one is that in our faith, we've been availed the sacrament of reconciliation, where we encounter God's mercy and forgiveness, that there is no sin, however big, that God cannot forgive of us. And just like that woman in today's gospel, we are invited to recognize how deeply loved. And we're also being invited to open our hearts to the forgiveness, especially through the sacrament of reconciliation. And also second, in this gospel that we are hearing, in a Jewish culture, a woman's hair was considered her crown, her beauty, her dignity, and her glory. Almost every woman kept her hair covered, as we see in a lot of the pictures or the paintings. Not only did this lady let her hair down in public, but she also used it to wipe the feet of Jesus. She didn't use a piece of cloth or a towel or anything. She just used her hair. In other words, she put aside any pride or any self-respect or any image and simply focused on adoring the Lord. She didn't care about being misunderstood or being judged by others. She simply cared about honoring Jesus. And here is a question for us that we can reflect on today. Are there ways we too need to let down our hair and be honest or unguarded before God about who we are, about our hidden struggles, about our desires that we have for Him, or how grateful we are to Him? Is there something like that we need to do? It is only when we become soft and tender and tearful before God that His mercy and forgiveness flood our lives and can be able to transform us. So you need to go in this position of fragility for that mercy and the forgiveness of God to be able to act in your life. May we in this Mass today ask the Lord for His grace to enable us to let our hair down and just simply be unguarded before Him. May we also ask in this Mass that we can open our lives to the sacrament of reconciliation, and even more importantly, be able to speak to Him from the deepest caucus of our hearts with transparency and honesty. Amen.
Amen.